Okay, I'm at 3057 Hillside Avenue, doing a sanitary lateral inspection for the purchase of a home. This is in Dayton, Ohio. We're looking for any structural issues, root intrusion, basically anything that would be of concern to the buyer. The access point, as you can see in front of me, is a PVC clean out and a stack. You hit a Y in there. There's also a clean out on that little Y, but this comes straight into the base of this. So there's also a clean out in the floor in the front of the house where it leaves the house. And so looks like cast iron. You can see some buildup on the bottom of the cast iron. This is normal for the age of the house. But cast iron does rust, and so it's kind of hard to see or tell when, like, how thin or thick the pipe walls are. But you know, we're looking for any visible structural issues. And they tend to build up at the bottom. You see how it looks flat. Getting buildup of like mineral deposits from the water over years, stuff like that. So as we pull back, it'll probably be a little bit more centered. And it's running up against the side of the pipe because of how it was laying. But I do always like to mention to people that cast iron is a lot more likely to have what they call soft clogs, which is basically it's from excessive toilet paper or wet wipes are a big thing to stay away from with cast iron. It's due to the just because of how rough the pipe walls are, they can catch, and they don't break down like toilet paper does. And so you can, if you take toilet paper, run it up underneath some water, you'll see how it just disintegrates, and that's what it's supposed to do, so that if it does ever get caught up in a sewer line, it just turns to mush and can flow on down the line with the water. Obviously, you can see there is the clean out there that's in the floor up above the camera. But yeah, if you use wet wipes, they don't break down, so if they do get caught, they won't break down very well, and then they can cause backups. So you can see we've switched over to clay, and a little bit of stuff on the front there, so we already have a little bit of root intrusion. Root intrusion is very common in old clay lines. It's probably in 80 to 90% of the clay lines that I inspect. And so far, this doesn't look horrible. Most of the time, they do get in at the connections, if you notice, right where the connections between sections of pipe are. You'll see that's where the roots get in. Over the years, what happens is that those connections are kind of like a bell on one end, or a male and a female end. And so there's room in between, and they pack it. Different age groups, they use different stuff, and if that kind of mortar or whatever kind of shrinks or cracks, the roots get in, and little tiny roots get in and love the water and fertilizer, we'll say, that's found in a sewer line. And so I'm going to try to push all the way out, because there's not, so far, it doesn't look like a whole ton of roots. But we'll see as we get further how big they get. But probably what we'll have to do is push all the way out to the main and see if we can rinse the camera off, and then as we pull back, it's usually a lot better because you're not pushing things up in front of the lens. You can see there. So far, I've just seen some minor root intrusion, nothing structural. But again, we'll be able to see a little bit better in some of these spots when we pull back. That little bit of water is not a problem. It's been there since the line was installed. It's just that camera lens is only about a ½ inch off the bottom of the pipe, so it doesn't take much to cover it. It looks like we're diving into the main now, and there we are. So We made it all the way to the sewer main. I'm going to try to rinse the camera off a little bit here. And so it's nice and clean. And then we'll pull back. So, you can see there's the connection on the main line out in the street. It looked like the line itself looked good structurally. Just had a little bit of, had some root intrusion back up towards the house. We'll note that. Normally with root intrusion you can get by in two ways. If it's light like this, you could probably do a chemical treatment. The most famous name is Root X, but there's multiple different types. And Root X kind of foams up. You put it in before you go to bed. Normally there are directions on the bottle, but you put it in and let it foam up and kind of flush it down a little bit, and it should catch on the roots, and it kind of burns them back a little bit so that they don't fill up the line and start catching debris and or clogging up the line. Alright, the line we're at about 77 feet to the main. Doesn't look like we really have much root intrusion at all. Past here about 47 feet. And so I'm going to run some water. I'll try to find a spot where I can run some water down the line where it doesn't come out on the floor. And so I'm going to try to run the stationary tub here in the back of the basement. So it's going to take a minute for the water to show up. You just want to try to make sure that the line the camera can stay as clear as possible, so you get a better look at these roots. Well, it looks like from about the roots are only there to about 54 feet here, 53, 54 feet, and it's not fully obstructing flow. So it's kind of borderline as to whether or not it needs an immediate cleaning. You can see the roots on the right side getting in at that connection. 53 feet. You can see the roots growing along the side, and they're starting to grow their way down, but they're all little finger roots. Those should be in a good position to where the chemical should get rid of those. And usually, even if you put a cutter head down through here, it probably won't really catch. You wouldn't feel it as you went by. And so I think a chemical treatment would be a good idea. And there's usually needed about once a year. So if you do it now, you want to do it again in another year or so. back into cast iron. So all the roots are within 38 or between 38 feet and 53 feet. And that is about the only thing. The line looks good structurally. It's open and flowing normally. It just needs probably some root X would be a good idea. And then I'd recommend doing that once a year. Once after you move in, and then once every year. And then in about 5 years, I'd recommend another inspection just to kind of gauge how fast the roots are growing and see, you know, if the maintenance schedule would need to be adjusted at all in either direction. Turn the water off, and so we're gonna, you can hopefully see as it's going through here. You can see how the bottom of the pipe looks flat, and that's that mineral deposit that gets on the bottom of the pipe, and that's pretty normal. You can see how the water comes through very easily, and now we are vertical coming out of the clean out. So the line looked great. Structurally, just had some root intrusion, some pretty minor root intrusion. Should be able to be taken care of with some root X, a chemical, and in those situations, what you do is you just if you put the chemical down, like I said, I want you immediately to try to get a start on it, and then after about a year, you just make sure you're reading the directions on the bottle properly, because it usually has to sit in the line for about 8 hours. You flush it, let it go down to a little bit of water to help carry it, but not enough that you flush the line out. And then the foaming action kind of catches on the roots, burns them back, and it should be a good precautionary measure or preventative maintenance measure to be able to keep the roots down. And then again, I would recommend in about 5 years having another inspection done just to kind of check the root growth and gauge your maintenance schedule to see if how well it's working, and you know, see if there is any more root growth, or see if you're taking care of it. But it's pretty normal to have to maintenance these old lines like this with roots. There's a lot of clay lines in the ground that have been there for 100 years, and there's a lot of trees sitting right on top of them. So it's pretty normal to have. But as long as you do some regular maintenance on them, they'll last a long time. And other than that, that was it. Just between 38 and 53 feet. The rest of the line looked great. So that'll end the inspection at 3057 Hillside Avenue in Dayton, Ohio.